Hello, and welcome to this session on Islandora fundamentals. My name is Morgan, and today we will be reviewing a community-contributed module, Permissions by Term. Permissions by Term is a Drupal module that allows you to attach permissions to individual taxonomy terms. If a user's access to a term is restricted, their access to any repository items using that term becomes restricted as well. Permissions by Term has thorough documentation describing its use, but will also cover some basic usage here. When access is restricted to a taxonomy term using permissions by term, users who are not in the allowed list of roles and users for that term will have no access to see that term, use it in any fields that are linked to its taxonomy vocabulary, or modify the term in any way. These same restrictions will extend to any repository item that is linked to the term in one of its fields. Permissions by term is not enabled by default. Enabling it comes with two caveats. A small, perhaps negligible performance decrease occurs on the site, since the module has to figure out whether or not a user has its special permissions every time someone visits a page. That time is, of course, added to the time needed to load the page. And, of course, after enabling the module, the permissions cache needs to be rebuilt at admin/reports/status/rebuild. The longer the site has been in use, or the more repository items and taxonomy terms there are on the site, the longer this process will take. The module can of course only be enabled by a site administrator, and to enable the module, head to the list of modules at admin/modules, or click on the puzzle piece icon on the left-hand administrative sidebar. Scroll down to the Permissions by Term group, then check off the Permissions by Term checkbox and click Install at the bottom of the page. Finally, rebuild the site permission cache by navigating to admin/reports/status/rebuild, or clicking the chart icon on the left-hand administrative sidebar, then Status Report, then scroll down to the report on node access permissions and clicking the Rebuild Permissions link. From here, click the Rebuild Permissions button. This process might take a while. To restrict access to a taxonomy term, navigate to a taxonomy vocabulary at admin/structure/taxonomy, or by clicking the diamond icon on the left-hand administrative sidebar, then taxonomy, then list terms to the right of the vocabulary that the term is part of. Finally, click Edit to the right of the term you'd like to add permissions to. On the Edit page, click the Permissions field set to show its contents. Individual users can be added to the allowed list, or entire roles. The allowed users field will autocomplete, allowing for more users if a comma is added between them. When you've added the users and roles who should be allowed to work with this term, click Save at the bottom of the page. If you have access to a particular restricted taxonomy term and its taxonomy vocabulary is linked to one of the repository item fields, you can restrict access to a repository item in the same way simply by adding that term to the field linked on repository items when creating or editing one. After adding that term to the repository item, you can check its current permissions by editing it again. The right-hand section will contain a Permissions by Term field set, which, when expanded, describes the current permissions applied to the repository item.